Good morning, sir.
Hello.
You're Kirk Edwin Jensen?
All right, buckle up, because this case is one of those courtroom moments where you don't just watch the law, you watch reality itself get put on trial. Today, we're in Michigan, and we've got a defendant who isn't just fighting a ticket. No. He's fighting the entire concept of government, citizenship, driver's licenses, and maybe even the planet we're currently living on. The man at the center of this, Kirk Edwin Jensen. And he walks into court accused of driving with no valid operator's license, no license in possession, and no proof of insurance. Sounds simple, right? Like a typical traffic day. Wrong. Because Jensen's defense is basically, I canceled my driver's license 13 years ago because I don't contract with the United States. I have a different passport, a different authority, and this is religious persecution. And the judge, Judge Middleton, male, is not the kind of judge who whispers. This man comes with sarcasm, courtroom wisdom, and a low tolerance for, let's call it, legal fan fiction. And here's the twist. What starts as traffic court begins spiraling into something way more serious. The words counterfeit passport and felony charges start creeping in.
Every day in the USA, people find themselves in court.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
You're Kirk Edwin Jensen? Yes. You got a ticket for no valid operator's license, no license in possession, and I don't think you can actually be convicted of both of those. It's either or, and no proof of it.
And that right there is actually a very real legal point from the judge. A lot of people don't realize traffic charges can overlap, but courts usually don't double punish for the same core conduct. No valid license and no license in possession can sometimes be charged together, but conviction on both depends on the statute and facts. Judge Middleton is immediately showing he's not here to steamroll anyone. He's trying to keep the case legally clean. That's important because it establishes something early. This judge is being fair, even before the defendant starts launching into alternative jurisdiction theories. Also notice what else the judge does. He lays out the rights, plea options, trial options, attorney options. That matters because later, when Jensen tries to act like the court is persecuting him, the record will show, no. Sir, you were offered due process multiple times. This is exactly how a judge protects the integrity of the case. Because if the defendant later appeals claiming unfair treatment, the transcript shows the judge explaining everything clearly and offering counsel. It's like the judge is building a courtroom safety net. I'm giving you every chance to do this right, so don't say later you weren't warned.
Insurance. Mr. Marvin said he spoke with you. You don't wish to enter a plea of guilty, which is your right, but you don't wish me to appoint an attorney. Can we just set this for a bench trial?
Or have it's either that or a jury trial, is that what you're saying?
Yes. You have a right to have well, let me ask you this. You don't want me to appoint an attorney. Do you wish to hire one?
No, I really don't even want to contract with the Crown Corporation here.
Okay, this is where we enter the sovereign citizen adjacent zone. He doesn't want to say sovereign citizen, but he's basically reading the greatest hits album. No contract, Crown Corporation, different government, religious persecution. Here's the thing. In U.S. law, driving on public roads is regulated under the state's police powers, meaning the government has authority to regulate it for public safety. You don't get to opt out the same way you'd cancel Netflix. And when he says, I canceled my license 13 years ago, he's basically admitting what the prosecution needs. He knows he doesn't have a valid Michigan license. Now, he tries to frame it as religion. But courts don't treat traffic licensing like a religious question. Religion protects belief, not behavior that puts the public at risk. And you can believe you're not subject to the state, but the second you drive on state roads, the state says, cool belief, still need a license. Engagement question. If you were Judge Middleton, what's your next move here? Do you shut this down immediately? Or do you let him speak to build the record and expose the weakness in the argument?
This has really turned into a religious persecution issue because, and I'm sure you can see, I canceled that driver's license 13 years ago because I didn't want to have that contract any longer. And I wanted to get out of that system and be completely separate. So I went with a different government altogether, with a different issuing authority. And I have documentation in the form of an international driving permit, which Mr. Marvin acknowledged he is aware of because he said he used to have one. So he knows about them. And that's what I had when I presented it to the officer. For whatever reason, the officer thinks it's not valid or that it's fraudulent. And that is his choice to decide that. But the charge of not having any driver's license on me is not true because I did have it on me.
Do you have it with you today?
No, he has it.
Who has it?
The officer, Officer Brooks, who took it from me. I have an international driving permit and a passport that was issued by a different governing authority than the United States. And for whatever reason, they're choosing not to acknowledge it. But it already has been.
Well, that's an interesting defense. Now, we've been struggling with international driver's licenses.
This is one of the most important legal reality checks in the whole video. The judge is explaining something many people misunderstand. An international driving permit isn't a magic license. In most cases, an international driving permit works like a translation of your real license. It's not a standalone replacement for licensing laws. It typically presumes you already have a valid license issued by your home jurisdiction. So if Jensen doesn't have a valid Michigan license anymore and his other government authority isn't recognized, this collapses fast. And Judge Middleton uses a smart comparison. He talks about Mexican licenses and legal status. He's not attacking anyone. He's demonstrating that documentation only matters if the underlying legal framework is valid. Also, the judge is quietly telling us something deeper. The court has seen this type of argument before. This isn't their first rodeo, which means Jensen is not bringing a groundbreaking legal theory. He's bringing a recycled one. But here's the scary part. Jensen truly believes this. That's why the judge keeps trying to steer him back toward, "You're here in Michigan, using Michigan roads." This is the courtroom version of, "Sir, you can't declare yourself immune from reality."
And for one issue, you have to be in the country legally. So we've got a number of Mexican people that have Mexican driver's license from Michoacan or Jalisco or one of the Mexican states. But if they're not here legally, it doesn't matter. You're obviously here legally. You were born a citizen. You may have.
I have changed my nationality is what I've done.
Where's your passport from?
It's issued by the government of the United States of America. It's not a blue passport. It's a different colored passport than that. Mr. Marvin says that there's no such thing as that, and that's fine if he wants to choose to do that. But I have had no issue. I have had no issue from anyone or anything using that. Granted, I have not gone out of the country with that yet. I have not had the means to do so.
Yeah, good luck.
But
You go out,
either way,
good luck trying to get back in. My
Right.
advice is don't do that.
Mhm.
You'll be a man with no country. So
Well,
don't
I-
leave the country, but you're here.
Mhm. Yeah, like I said, according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I have a right to change my nationality. And the Crown Corporation here is trying to deny me that nationality, which really falls under a religious persecution issue here, because I don't want to have any more dealings with the Crown Corporation. And so
I don't know what universe you're from, but there is no Crown Corporation. This is
Oh, Judge Middleton just hit him with the cleanest legal smackdown possible, without even raising his voice. And what makes it brilliant is the phrasing, "I don't know what universe you're from." That's not just humor. That's a judicial strategy. The judge is drawing a line between legitimate legal arguments and what the court views as nonsense theories. And notice, He doesn't debate theology or universal declarations. He doesn't have to. Courts don't run on vibes. They run on statute. And in Michigan statute, you need an operator license. Period. Also, Jensen saying, "I cut it up and sent it back," is basically the worst possible defense. Like, sir, you didn't cancel a contract, you just canceled your ability to legally drive. Now, the judge brings up a prior conviction in 2019. That matters because this isn't his first warning. That establishes history. The state can argue he knowingly continues to drive unlicensed. At this point, Judge Middleton is basically giving him one more chance to cleanly resolve it, but you can feel it. Jensen is not here for resolution. He's here for ideological war, engagement. Question: do you think courts should have more patience with defendants like this? Or should judges shut these arguments down immediately to protect court time?
The state of Michigan. And in the state of Michigan, you have to have a driver's license. You may have one. Your operator's license, you're right, is canceled. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
I cut it up and I sent it back to the Secretary of State 13 years ago. I did not want to have that contract any longer.
But you got convicted in Niles in 2019 of no ops. You failed to appear. They defaulted you, I guess. But yeah, they've got your old driver's license picture in here. But yeah, you don't have a bad driving record. There's no speeding, seatbelt.
I'm not a bad guy. I just want to get around
here
differently.
You were here on May 11th.
Correct.
And you wanted the complaint dismissed. You told me that you had an license canceled and lien. So I set it for the pretrial, which is what we just did. All right. Now I got a concern that the officer has your license.
Yeah, he still has it. He doesn't, I don't know why he hasn't given it back to me yet.
Well, I want to see it. All right. So Mr. Marvin says we haven't reached a settlement. You believe you have a defense. You don't want to have an attorney. So the question becomes, we set it for a trial. And do we set it for a trial in front of the judge, or do you wish to have a jury come in and hear this?
I want to just plain have it settled, and whether it's with him and you.
Well, I don't have the authority to settle it. He does. I can set it for what's called a last pretrial before jury trial. And I will get your international. This may be more of a legal issue than a factual issue. You were driving in the state of Michigan, and you don't have a Michigan driver's license. But you may have a valid international license. I don't know. There's no. Now the prosecutor has the police report. I don't.
The other thing that I failed to mention was that I was also under contract while I was driving that.
This is where Jensen accidentally exposes something. He may have been doing work-related driving, possibly business-related services. And that opens an entire legal can of worms. Judge Middleton immediately clocks it. He says, then you may need a CDL. And that's not a joke. If Jensen is transporting goods or performing certain services for compensation, depending on the situation, he could be crossing into commercial motor vehicle regulations. The defendant thinks he's strengthening his case by saying he had obligations. But legally, he might be admitting he was driving for work without proper licensing. That makes things worse. And the judge calling it alternate universe stuff is key. The judge is telling him, the law doesn't care about your private contract with the vehicle owner if you're violating public roadway rules. Private agreements don't override public safety laws. This is like saying, officer, I was speeding, but I had a contract to get the pizza there fast. The law replies, congrats, still speeding. At this stage, the court is trying to decide what to do. Trial, settlement, bench versus jury. But Jensen keeps slipping into these irrelevant concepts. And every minute he does that, he burns credibility.
I was under a legal contract. And obviously that contract was impaired while I was trying to fulfill the obligations of that contract.
That's alternate universe stuff. There's no contract. The issue
No,
is,
I mean, the owner of the vehicle, I had a contract with the owner of the vehicle. I was under contract to perform some services for the owner of the vehicle.
oh, okay, so, all right. That may be so,
Right.
but then you may need a CDL to do that.
Your Honor?
Yes?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that statute in like years, but doesn't an international license have to have a prerequisite of a valid license from some place before you can apply for that international
well,
license?
And I had a national one too as well.
So I don't know.
I believe that's
we've
the
been-
prerequisite, but I
All
don't
right,
know.
well,
I
it
could
may be,
wrong.
but we've got a legal issue and I don't even. He's got
I
a theory
understand.
that may have no basis or may have some basis.
It's
We have
interesting.
recently had a man from India
Mhm.
who tried to do everything right.
Right, I remember him.
And it's so cumbersome and difficult. And
Mhm.
he really he was living here. He had a driver's license from India. He got an international driver's license. Or he had a New York license and somewhere he forgot to dot an I or cross a T. All right, I'm gonna set this for a last pretrial, but I need,
And what does that mean?
means we're gonna take one more effort at resolving this thing, but I
Okay.
need to see your evidence.
Okay. Well, I can tell you the Officer Brooks, he's the one that has it.
All right. An attorney could help you with the legal issues on this. You don't wish to have?
No,
one?
I have other representation.
All right, let's assume for the minute that your argument has got some merit, that you've got some passport and an international driver's license. That, maybe that's enough, but it usually presumes that you have a valid license somewhere else.
Mhm.
So they didn't take your passport too, did they? Took your
Mhm.
passport and,
Mhm.
all right, I'm gonna set this for last pretrial 2 weeks from now. For June 29th. At 3:00. Does that interfere with your work schedule?
No, I'm self-employed.
Okay. They charge this on the ticket. You're also alleged to have no proof of insurance, which is a civil infraction.
The insurance was there. It was not on the car, in the car at the time.
All right.
A simple phone call to the insurance agency will prove that it was
All right.
in existence.
Well, there's two different kinds of offenses. One is not having insurance. That's a 1-year misdemeanor, carries a minimum $200 fine.
This is a perfect moment of courtroom education. And honestly, Judge Middleton is doing more public legal service here than most people get in an entire lifetime. He breaks down the insurance issue in a way that's easy. Not having insurance at all equals criminal level trouble, misdemeanor, minimum fines, serious consequences. Having insurance but not carrying proof equals usually a civil infraction, basically paperwork violation. That distinction matters a lot because Jensen is arguing like he's accused of being uninsured, when the charge is more like, you didn't have proof in the car when asked. And from a legal standpoint, this is where Jensen actually has a pathway to win. Because if he produces valid proof of insurance for that date, this piece can get resolved quickly. But Jensen is so deep into the Crown Corporation argument that he's missing the easiest off-ramp. This is a huge lesson. Some defendants lose not because the law is unfair, but because they refuse to participate in the one part that could actually help them.
The other one is not having the slip in the car.
Right.
So if you can prove that so that's what the charge is. It isn't that you didn't have an insurance, and you didn't have it in the car.
Yeah.
So if you got it, bring with you your proof of insurance
Right.
for that date.
Right.
All right, we'll try another shot at this. When you were here at your arraignment in May, you were very polite and respectful, and we don't agree on things. But let's take a closer look before I jump to any conclusions.
And I'll have a lot more evidence at that time, yeah.
And if it can be resolved, great. If it can't be, the question at that point will be, do we have a jury trial or do we have a bench trial? And one of the things about people like you that want to check out of our government and our system, they don't mind bringing in 30 of their fellow citizens to come in and hear their thing. The irony is,
This is Judge Middleton at peak courtroom truth mode, and it's more than sarcasm. It's pointing out a very real civic principle. The justice system is built on participation. He's essentially saying, you want the benefits of public roads, public courts, and public infrastructure, but you don't want the obligations. That's why the judge calls it irony, because jury trials are resource heavy. Jurors take time off work, travel, sit for hours, and they're required by law to participate. So when a defendant who refuses contracting wants a jury, it's like you reject the system, but you want to summon 30 citizens into it for your own advantage. Also notice how the judge explains burden of proof. Jensen thinks, I raise defense, they prove it wrong. The judge corrects him. You still need some merit to the defense before it becomes relevant. This is the judge warning him. You can't just say magic words and shift the whole burden. And what makes it dramatic? Judge Middleton is still being polite, but you can hear his patience thinning. This court is about to stop entertaining fantasy and start enforcing consequences.
if I sent you a jury notice, you wouldn't show up. You would say, I don't contract with you and I won't participate in your system. But you don't have any compunction about dragging 30 other people in here to hear your case. So at this point, we haven't gotten that far.
Can we just decide that in 2 weeks?
Yes,
Okay.
certainly. So let's see, I want to get those documents from the sheriff's department, take a look at them.
Okay.
There may need to be some legal research done as well.
Mhm.
But you're putting the burden on them, which is how it sort of works.
Yeah,
They have the burden of proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. So you raise this defense and say, prove it's not right. Well, that isn't exactly how it works. You've got to show there's some merit to the defense. Key West used to offer passports to the Conch Republic. There was a little place there and you could get a Conch Republic passport and it looked like a real passport. And they shut them down. People were using them in other countries to show they had a Conch Republic quasi-American passport.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of screwy passports out there.
And I understand that there's nefarious people who want to do things for nefarious purposes, and that's not me. I don't want to do anything for nefarious or evil purposes. I'm trying to be upright and righteous here in what I'm doing. And I'm just simply wanting to be separate according to my religious beliefs. And that's all this really boils down to.
All right, well, one option is don't drive a car. If you don't want to participate in it and you want to opt out of our system, don't drive. Have somebody else drive you or stay in one place. But if you want to use our public roadways and share the road with other people that are licensed, you can't just decide I live in an alternate universe and I don't have to obey the same rules that everybody else does. So one option is don't drive. And then you won't have to worry about it, but we'll see what we can figure out. We'll take another crack at this June 29th at 3 p.m. here, and I'll get those documents. If you have proof of insurance, bring it with you.
Okay.
All right, I'll see you then.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's see what we do.
And a side note, what happened with the sovereign?
Now, this is where the tone of the case quietly changes, because the moment the judge steps out of the direct defendant conversation and starts speaking with court staff / prosecutor like this, you can tell the court is getting concerned. This isn't just traffic chatter anymore. This is a judge trying to determine whether he's looking at a misguided citizen or someone carrying fraudulent federal documents. And notice how careful Judge Middleton is here. He's not automatically declaring the documents fake just because the defendant is weird or annoying. He says the most important phrase, "I haven't seen them with my own eyes and I'd like to run them past somebody." That is what a fair judge does. Verify first. But the prosecutor side is already hinting at the nuclear option. If they confirm counterfeit, this leaves the traffic realm. And Judge Middleton straight up says, if they're counterfeit, this won't be handled in his court, meaning felony and serious consequences. This is the moment viewers should understand. Court is not about your ideology. It's about proof, evidence, and documents that can be verified. And if you start playing games with passports, that's not travel philosophy. That's a federal level problem.
He claims that he has an international driver's license and a passport, and that Deputy Brooks seized them.
Yeah, he did, because.
Well, I said, I'd like to see them.
Mhm.
And so I set him for a final pretrial on June 29th.
I was told, I haven't seen them. They're available to me, and this week, tomorrow, I'm gonna go look at them. I was told they're counterfeit.
Well, that may be so. I'd like to see them. He claims that he has an international driver's license and a passport. And we discussed whether he wanted a bench trial or a jury trial. He was leaning toward jury. And then I said, you know, that's ironic that if you got a jury summons, you wouldn't show up, but you don't have any compunction about bringing all these people in here. And he said, well, can we discuss that at the last pretrial? The no proof of insurance. He said, yeah, I didn't have it in the car. I said, well, that's what the charge is. It's not that you didn't have it in the car. So that case is a civil infraction. He's not entitled to counsel or jury. But yeah, I'd like to see those documents and have you, if you believe they're counterfeit, we can discuss
I do,
that.
but I haven't seen them with my own eyes, and I'd like to run them past somebody. And I did say that if I find out they are counterfeit, this is not gonna be in this court. He's gonna have a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon,
Thank you.
sir. Are you Kirk Edwin Jensen?
Yes, I have documents in here that I just filed with the clerk, and I need to submit them here.
Is that this thing called non-statutory abatement?
That's it.
All right, I got it. I provided a copy to Miss Davis. It's entitled Kirk Edwin Jensen, Reign Citizen, Reign of Heavens, a set apart place with an address. Non-statutory abatement. File number 23660ST, charges operating with no license. Charge 23661, charged with operating with no license in your possession. I don't think you can be convicted of both of those, as I said at our arraignment. And then the third count is a civil infraction, no proof of insurance. Could probably be charged as no insurance, but it was charged as a civil infraction.
I have the proof of that here,
May I see it? All right, that's the person that owned the car.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Let Debbie see that. All right, we had kind of a chase our tails around at the time of the arraignment. You are, what do you wish to be, a Reign citizen?
That I have a social compact and a body politic, which gives the authority for the credentials that I had when I had given them to Mr. Brooks at the time. And
The officer that wrote the ticket.
right. You had said that you were going to try to get those from him and see them for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know whether Ms. Davis got that or not.
We did get additional information from the agency in Detroit regarding passports, and they confirmed they are fraudulent. So if this doesn't get resolved today with the plea as charged to these misdemeanors, then we will be amending to have felony charges.
boom. That's the courtroom turning point. Up until now, Jensen has been trying to treat this like a political debate. Contract, Crown Corporation, religious persecution, change nationality. But the prosecutor doesn't care about vibes. She just drops something that destroys the fantasy instantly. Passport agency confirmation. Fraudulent. In legal terms, once there's credible information that a passport is fake, the entire case stops being about traffic law and becomes about document fraud. And that isn't, oops, I forgot my insurance card. That is a direct threat to the integrity of identification systems, which the state takes extremely seriously. And listen carefully. The prosecutor says if it doesn't resolve with plea today, they will amend to felony charges. And that means the state is essentially giving him a final escape hatch. Like, take responsibility for the traffic offenses and we won't smash you with the bigger case. But Jensen is too far gone mentally into this identity framework. He's not hearing escape hatch. He's hearing oppression. And that's exactly why cases like this spiral. Not because the law is confusing, but because the defendant refuses to accept the basic premise of court authority.
All right, fair enough. People call themselves different things. The common vernacular term had become sovereign citizen.
And I do not claim that in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
I rebut that. I completely rebut that statement.
All right. Well, I tried to think of a term for it.
Well,
Just a minute.
Okay.
Let me get my thoughts together here. We had a guy, Mr. Aiken, a couple of weeks ago, and we went round and round with him, and he wanted a jury trial, and he didn't show up, and then he was found in contempt, and he went to jail. And I said, well, how about willfully misinformed defendant? That's too cumbersome, or willfully ignorant defendant. And then I was laying in bed between then and now, and I thought, follow me here, Mimsy were the borough groves. It's like, what the heck does that mean? It's from the poem Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. It was written in the 1800s. It's a nonsense poem that doesn't mean anything. And more importantly, there was a science fiction story written maybe during the war called Mimsy Were the Borough Groves. It's a very interesting story about some toys that were sent from the future back to here. It's pretty relevant right now with cell phones. And the third line is Mimsy were the borough groves. And what is a borough grove? It doesn't make any sense. So my term for these people that come in with this kind of nonsensical jabberwocky is going to be borough groves.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially entered what I can only describe as Judge Middleton's comedic villain arc. This is an all-time courtroom rant. The judge is basically saying, you're not giving law, you're giving poetry. Confusing, random poetry. And he's using Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky, the most famous nonsense poem in history, to explain that this defendant's filings are meaningless word salad dressed up like legal authority. And let me say this clearly. Judges see fake legal motions all the time. Abatement, self-claimed contracts, exhibits, body politic, all packaged to look official. But courts don't run on formatting. They run on enforceable law. What makes this moment so powerful is that Judge Middleton isn't just clowning Jensen. He's teaching the audience how to spot pseudo-legal nonsense. A big red flag is heavy, legal-sounding language, random historical/religious citations, no actual statute or controlling case law. And when the judge says, neither do your pleadings, he's doing what courts must do, maintain rule of law. Because if courts pretended these filings were valid, the justice system would collapse under endless invented loopholes. This is hilarious, but it's also deadly serious.
So this is borough grove. It doesn't mean anything, and neither do your pleadings. This non-statutory abatement and all this stuff about self-claimed contracts and Exhibit B and C has no lawful effect. So the question I have here is, Do you wish to have a trial on these matters, or do you wish to enter a plea to this?
So does the body politic and social compact, is that being disregarded?
Correct.
Okay, then I'll go with the trial.
All right, then I will. Do you want to have an attorney to assist you?
No.
All right, you sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. The prosecutor is going to charge you with some sort of felony charge. What charge did you have in mind, Ms. Davis?
I believe that Prosecutor Morgan looked it up and it was fraudulent documentation, basically manufacturing fraudulent passport and a fraudulent license.
We talked about Conch Republic passports. Whatever you had, and this false passport and some claim that somehow you had an international driver's license. You have to have a driver's license from somewhere to have an international driver's license. And this
Right.
isn't it?
And I had that too. I have that too, yes.
All right, well,
One last question. The documents that were taken by Mr. Brooks, I want to make sure that those are entered in as evidence when the time comes.
do you have those, Deborah?
I do not have physical possession of them. As all evidence, it's held by the sheriff's department and the evidence lockers. So certainly we would introduce those as exhibits.
All right. Well, you're always polite enough, but
I stand
this,
firm.
well, this, it's the
stand firm
problem
on
with
that,
this is insidiously dangerous.
This is one of the most important moments in the entire case, because Judge Middleton just explained, in plain English, why courts take this ideology seriously. He's saying, you're polite, you're respectful, but the danger is the precedent. Because if every person could declare themselves exempt from the system, no license, no courts, no laws, then society becomes survival of the loudest. And the judge is also calling out a subtle manipulation tactic. You're yanking my chain. Basically accusing Jensen of wasting time by pretending this is a good faith legal position when, in reality, it's an attempt to sabotage the process. The judge then takes it to the extreme intentionally. What's next? I can punch somebody, I can kill somebody, I can sell drugs. He's not saying Jensen would do that. He's showing the logic. And this is how judges frame the broader stakes. Law isn't personal preference, it's social structure. The rules apply even to people who don't like them. Engagement. Question: do you agree with Judge Middleton here that these arguments are dangerous, even if the person is polite? Or do you think the court should treat it like harmless weirdness?
People decide on their own that the rules don't apply to them. And even though they're polite and respectful, you're yanking my chain, and this is a waste of our court's time and Ms. Davis's time.
I intend to prove that
All
these
right.
things are correct.
All right, maybe you do, but they aren't. This stuff is meaningless. And if everybody decided like you that they don't need a driver's license, they don't participate in our social contract, and they wish to use our public roadways and our streetlights and our court system, but hey, it doesn't apply to me, things would break down. The rule of law would cease to exist. So it's polite, but it's insidious and it's dangerous. What's next? I don't have the social contact, so I can punch somebody in the nose. I can kill somebody. I can sell drugs. The rules don't apply to me because I'm a RAIN citizen. Well, it don't work that way, at least not here in Michigan or in St. Joe County. Same rules apply to you that apply to everybody else. And you're going to get charged with a felony document fraud case. So I'm gonna set this for, do you want a bench trial or a jury trial?
Jury.
Yeah, the same thing. It's hypocritical. The rules don't apply to you, but you don't mind bringing in 30 of your citizens to come in and
It's
hear
gonna be
this
just
stuff.
me. It's just gonna be just me.
I'm gonna set for a jury trial.
Your Honor, if we amend it, obviously.
I
the
understand.
felony will
I just want a
let you know.
target date
Sure.
for August 16. If prosecutor amends to felony, we'll schedule a pre-exam. Mimsy, we're the Borough Groves. That's what this amounts to. 'Twas brilling on their slithy ties. It's a bunch of nonsense. And so, Mr. Borough Grove, I will see you on August 16th at 8:30. They choose to call themselves by different titles. Henceforth, I'm going to refer to this type of defendant as a Borough Grove. Makes me happy. All right, we have Mr. Kirk Jensen here, who's unrepresented. Mr. Jensen, would you come up and have a seat? Josh, you kind of inherited this. Mr. Jensen was originally charged with traffic violations. The matter was set for a jury trial for August 16th, I believe it was. We had summoned jurors and we were ready to proceed. Earlier that week, I believe August 14th, Mr. Marvin filed a felony complaint based on the same set of facts. So the matter was set for a pre-exam conference. Mr. Jensen has made every court hearing. But he did express that he wants to represent himself. I offered to appoint counsel at each stage of the misdemeanor proceedings, and again in this case, but he declined. So, Mr. Jensen, you still wish to represent yourself in this matter?
I wish to have this case completely dismissed.
Well, everybody feels that way. Everybody else who wants their case dismissed, raise your right hand. Yeah, that was unanimous. So that's not up to me. But the question is, I'm willing to appoint counsel for you, but you've represented to me at each stage you wish to represent yourself.
I do not wish to have any counsel.
All right. Well, then let's talk about where we are. Where's the complaint? The complaint alleges that on or about April 6th in Lockport Township that you did obstruct justice by preferring a counterfeit U.S. passport and counterfeit international driver's license at the time of a lawful traffic stop, an attempt to avoid criminal liability for driving without a license. The way that is charged, it is a felony punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment.
This is the point where Jensen's whole "it's just a ticket" mindset should have evaporated. Judge Middleton lays it out clearly. This is now about obstructing justice by presenting counterfeit documents during a lawful traffic stop, allegedly to avoid criminal liability. That's not just fraud. It's fraud connected to evading accountability. And look at the stakes. 5 years imprisonment and up to $10,000 fine on the felony count. Plus another misdemeanor count for possessing forged/counterfeit license documents. And the original no operator charge is still lurking in the background like a snake ready to bite. This is why courts beg defendants to take counsel. Self-representation might sound empowering, but in felony territory, it's like performing surgery on yourself while arguing with the scalpel. Also notice, Jensen keeps objecting to the label counterfeit. That's his whole defense. Not that the traffic stop didn't happen, not that he had a valid Michigan license, but that the paperwork should be accepted as legitimate. Legally, that's a very weak defensive posture unless he can prove the issuing authority has legitimacy. Because in court, I object isn't evidence. Proof is evidence. And now he's in the deep water.
And a fine of up to $10,000. The second count is possession of a reproduced, altered, counterfeit, or forged chauffeur's license. operator's or chauffeur's license. That's a misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of up to $2,000. Count 3 alleges that you had no valid operator's license, plain old no ops. They're also charged with a civil infraction of no proof of insurance.
And I object to those. I object to that being labeled as counterfeit on all of those documents.
All right. Mr. O'Bear, do you have any instructions here or a plea offer? Or?
So the offer would be if the defendant wanted to plead to count 3, operating with no license, it's the 90-day misdemeanor. We would recommend fines and costs.
I object to that, and I will not consent to that either.
All right, let me unpack that a little bit. All right, you're charged with a felony, and you're charged with possession of a false or forged counterfeit license. You're also charged with no proof of insurance. Prosecutor would dismiss all of those charges if you plead to no valid operator's license with a fine and cost. You may be the first person in my 21-year career that objects to having all the.
This is the moment where the audience collectively screams, "Take the deal." Judge Middleton is genuinely stunned because the prosecutor is offering something extremely rare. Drop the felony charges entirely if Jensen pleads to no valid operator's license with fines and costs. That's it. No prison risk, no life-altering conviction, just a standard traffic outcome. And Jensen's response? Objection, because he refuses to accept that his documents are counterfeit. This is where ideology becomes self-destruction. Let's decode the offer. Prosecutor drops felony obstruction count, drops counterfeit license count, drops the insurance issue. Jensen pleads to no ops. He gets fined $225 per judge and walks out. That is a legal lifeboat. Judge Middleton even offers an intelligent compromise. No contest plea. And that means Jensen doesn't have to admit he's wrong in his worldview. He can simply accept the conviction without admitting guilt. Courts offer that for this exact reason, to close a case without forcing a defendant to confess. But Jensen is too committed to the narrative, and the judge warns him, if you want to reap the whirlwind, the prosecutor will pursue felony bind over to circuit court.
Felony charges dismissed for a plea to a $200 fine. Nonetheless, you object.
I object to the fact that it's been labeled as counterfeit.
All right, well, they're just willing to dismiss that charge. The allegation in count 3 is that you are operating a vehicle on a public roadway without having a valid license, sometimes called no ops or no valid operator's license. It's under 257301 of the Michigan Traffic Code. It's punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a fine of up to $100. It carries 2 points and it goes on your driving record. If you plead guilty to that charge, I'm going to fine you $225. I'm going to give you time to pay it, and the matter will be done. If you don't wish to plead to that, we're going to have a preliminary examination next Wednesday, where the prosecutor will attempt to bind you over to circuit court on felony charges and continue the matter for a felony conviction with potential prison sentence. So his offer is to just be done with all of it for a plea to no valid operators. That's, I frankly was kind of surprised by the generous offer, but that's what it is. So our options are to plead to having no valid operator's license. You could even plead no contest. You can plead no contest. You don't admit what happened, but you also don't deny what happened. You allow or accept that a conviction will enter. You and I have a fundamental disagreement about what it means to operate a vehicle or what it means to travel. But if you want this matter to be over with, you can enter a no contest plea to no valid operator's license. If you want to reap the whirlwind, we can have a preliminary examination next Tuesday afternoon regarding the matter. What would you like to do, Mr. Jensen?
I don't accept any of that.
All right, the matter will be set for prelim
And just to make it clear, this would be the third time that a charge of no operator's license has been levied against me, and I'm standing against it because those documents are valid, and I object to them being
Well,
labeled as
we'll
counterfeit.
find out next week. So that will be Tuesday, September 5th at 1 p.m. Prelim. All right, your bond is continued. You're free to go.
And just a reminder of the civil case that is ongoing, and those who are named in that, yourself and Mr. Marvin as well. Just to make sure that
Which civil case is that?
civil case, the notices, and all the recusals and everything that's been filed into this case that I've been filing in. Just to make note of that, that it is, on the record.
Well, let's take a look. Oh, you filed a August 28th, which is yesterday. I got this. I didn't see it. Objection to the report and recommendation in the matter of civil case. You filed this in federal court?
This was done in a federal court, has a federal case number on it. And all the defendants.
And here's the clean ending. After all the chaos, all the contracts, all the Rain Citizen paperwork storms, all the Jabberwocky, we land right back where the law started, driving without a valid license. This case is a textbook example of what happens when someone tries to fight a legal system using a belief system. Judge Middleton repeatedly offered Jensen fairness, explained rights, offered counsel, provided procedural options, gave him chances to present proof. But Jensen chose to represent himself and rejected every reasonable exit ramp. The prosecutor escalated based on evidence, especially involving alleged fraudulent documents, and the judge made it clear. Fake passports aren't cute. They're not ideology. They're serious criminal exposure. In the end, even law enforcement and agents confirmed the documents were fake. And the judge refused to waste jurors and court resources chasing nonsense when the core issue was straightforward. Broader implication, courts will tolerate confusion, but they will not tolerate manufactured reality. The rule of law requires consistent rules, and if your defense depends on pretending the rules don't exist, you're not defending yourself. You're digging your own hole.